Chris has asked me to do another impromptu, extemporaneous aviation discussion. Today we're going to take a quick look, a very brief look, as all three of these have been very general overviews. Today we're looking at a B-29. B-29s came out in the early 1940s. They started being used in World War II in the Pacific. There were a few that flew in Britain, but really not a consequential unit. Bombing unit in Europe. They were Pacific bombers. They were, however, used again in Korea, and this example is one that did so. It is painted in that scheme. It's also a really unique piece here. It's actually just about half of a B-29, and it's been configured so you can walk through and see what the inside looked like. I'm just going to point out a few things, so follow me.
Watch your head.
Alright, come on in and turn around. Alright, while Chris gets situated here, forward that's been cut out would have been the bombardier's compartment. Down in a nice plexiglass nose. This would have been a lot of fun to fly, just to be able to see in and see out. So what we're looking at here is the pilot and the co-pilot station. So on the pilot station you can see the very basic limited instrumentation that he had. You can see the throttle quadrant that is there. So it's throttle controls, throttle lock, and personal things like the oxygen and various hookups for radio communication throughout the airplane. The yoke, the rudders, central console. Always need nice buttons and switches. Be able to control your props, your lights, radios, all that good kind of stuff from up front. And the co-pilot, similar. That flap indicator that goes in 5-degree increments is kind of cool because so many of them are just notches now. Notch 1, notch 2, notch 3, notch 4. That you can just kind of dial in what you wanted. Throttle's really cool there. Again, for plugging in your electrically heated suits. Now there's something we'll come back to on this, but the suits were not as widely used. This airplane marked a change in the way large airplanes distributed the flight duties. If you look at a B-17 or a B-24 and many of the other World War II bombers, especially the 4-engine bombers, which would be pretty much US and Britain, with a few exceptions, they, with the B-29, a lot of the flight duties were separated out to the flight engineer, who took care of the engines, the startup, and in flight. And you can see have the throttle and mixture controls here, controlled all that, leaning it out, leaning out the engines to get the greatest amount of range available, and all the good stuff to control there. So this was the flight engineer station. You'll see this remain in large airplanes, bombers, cargo airplanes, and the like, up until computers made it where they decided they could eliminate the person and go back to just a pilot and co-pilot. Again, larger airplanes, smaller airplanes, smaller flight crews. Radio and radar operator station. So we're doing navigation up here. We're doing radio communications. We're doing other related duties. And I'm standing in where the top turret would be. Many B-29s did have this replaced. But in the World War II and most production bombers, there was a .450 caliber turret here, remotely controlled from different stations throughout the airplane. Different crew members could fire the guns. They didn't have to be here and physically handle them, aim them, all that was done remotely, and that was brand new technology in the day. And you can see from the sides here where the turret mechanisms would have been. Again, more radio operator station here. Nice little seat to sit on for a long flight. The telegraph key, so you can tap out your Morse code. Little lights and other vintage radio equipment. There would have been more things in here in the day, but this is a good representation, I'm sure. Now, another thing that was unique about the B-29 is that it was pressurized. It was not pressurized from nose to tail, but it was pressurized in 3 compartments: the forward, an aft compartment, and the tail gunner's compartment. And so the bomb bays were not pressurized, so that you could get from one compartment to the other. There was a tunnel, a crew tunnel, that you would crawl through to go from one pressurized compartment to the other. No problems there. It was pressurized. You could see the air supply and so forth that was going through here, just to make sure that all that stayed where it needed to be pressurized wise. Then there was a hatch here that sealed this bulkhead for when you were not in pressurized mode, below at 10,000 or below, so that the bombardier could come out, arm the bombs, inspect the bomb bay, maybe other engineering, electromechanical duties that might be required to here. There would have been a hatch here that's been removed because the museum has provided this nice walking surface that would not have been in the bomb bay, but just so that people can take a walk through and see what everything was like. Now, in watching your head still, you can see the spherical shape to the bulkhead. This is where the hatch would have been. You can see where it was, and the rest of the bulkhead was cut away, and the handles for swinging your feet through, going in and out. You can see all the flight cables and wiring, and some of the hydraulic lines. And of course now we're in the bomb bay itself. And this is the forward of the 2 bomb bays. And they have helpfully put in a couple of different representations here for the bombs that have been dropped. And you get a real good close-up look at how they were shackled in place with these spreader bars, and how they were put in, and a little spring-loaded tab on this guy. These would out when the bombardier wanted to release. These would come in, bringing these 2 arms in, which would kick 2 little cams out here, letting go of the rings on the bombs, and the bomb would drop away. So, alright, I'll hand the camera back to Chris because she doesn't like to be without it. Again, you can see the different cables. This is, yeah, all cable to all the flight control surfaces. Everything else now, they cut away the wing section here so that, again, for museum purposes, walk through and see everything. Not be a lot of fun to have to crawl over top of this. But this would have been a solid piece, wing box. See the oxygen bottles.
Mm-hmm. Kind of dark, but you can kind of see in through it.
Okay. And the aft bomb bay, they have a different type of bomb here. These are serrated, making them a fragmentation bomb, which were widely used in Korea. Used in World War II as well. Same bomb release mechanisms. The little fins that are vanes that spin to arm the bomb and so forth. Okay, and the crew tunnel continued, but it's been cut away again so that you have a little less to bump your head on when you're in the museum. You can see that it normally continued all the way back. And at this bulkhead would have gone into a second compartment that is not here. This is where they end the tour, so to speak. But you get an idea of what the inside of this bomber was like. There would have been the gunning stations for other turrets of guns on the aircraft, a crew relief area, then another bulkhead, and then a passageway back to the tail gun station on the Rebel B-29s. Those did change through the years as the mission profile changes, of course, always. Any plane went through that development. And that's all I have on the B-29.